Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. I think Brian Kelly might be joining us shortly. But welcome to our April DAP. It's our first hybrid DAP. So in the room today, we have Paul Mortensen, Elza Heisel McCoy, Robert Cronenberg, and Rod, our one and only panel member. So the party's starting small, but we hope to see you guys here soon. And it looks like online panel members, we have George, Damon, and Shao Joy. Today we do, I just want to remind you, we are being recorded today. And the format for today's presentation will be a presentation by the design team with discussion from the panel. We don't have any members of the public signed up for today's item, but we did receive one email which was sent out to you yesterday. The first item for today is 7126 Wisconsin Avenue. This was just recently in front of the DAP in July of last summer as a concept plan, essentially showing how this western portion is being separated from the Farm Women's Market sketch plan, which was seen by the DAP previously. And so as we move forward now, this will be a sketch plan amendment and site plan. So it's before the DAP as a site plan, where we're reviewing more fine architectural details and determining design excellence points. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to the applicant team for presentation.
All right, thanks. And Grace, just quick question up front. You said there was an email received. Did you send that to us? Because I don't think I saw anything. Or did it not go out to the applicant team?
I can check with Emily and send it forward to you along now, if not.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and just so we're aware, and sort of one of the main reasons I ask is because we are in the process of doing a lot of community outreach in advance of formally submitting the sketch plan amendment, preliminary plan, and site plan applications. So Judd has been meeting individually with members of the community. We're meeting with the IAC, the CAB, the DAP today. Meeting with actually town of Chevy Chase in about a week and a half. And that's of course in addition to, and I probably left out a scheduled meeting or two, but of course that's in addition to the formal pre-submission community meeting. But anyway, I asked just because obviously we know going back to the original sketch plan on this project back, I guess about 3 years ago now, there's always been a lot of community interest in this, in these applications. So we're definitely trying to do a lot of outreach there. So. Anyway, sorry, launched right into that. Heather Delpolsky, I'm the land use and zoning attorney for the applicant here. We have representatives of each of our sort of disciplines on the project here. And so maybe I'll just sort of generally run through it and then ask if Judd with the applicant would like to say a few words. So we have Andy and Valerie with SK&I, who are our architects, Matt Polhouse with Bowler Engineering, who is our civil engineer, and Brian Bolin with Parker Rodriguez, who is our landscape architect. And I see Trini Rodriguez from Parker Rodriguez is on as well. And then we have Josh Etter, Judd Ullum, and Dory Farley with the applicant. So I'm just going to speak very briefly overview just to sort of set the stage a little. I know Gracie already did that. Then I'll just turn it to Judd to say a few words and we'll launch right into the design discussion. So the DAP has seen this project several times now. If I'm counting correctly, it's probably actually we're likely on the fourth time. So the first two were when it came in with the east side of Wisconsin with the original sketch plan. Again, that was back in 2018, 2019. We were then before the DAP again this past summer. And that was as part of the concept plan application for this west side of the project. We submitted that concept plan application because we added a piece, as you recall, Capital One to the assemblage, and wanted to come in for concept plan and get feedback from the DAP very early on, because obviously that's very important and informative. And so now we are gearing up to file the combined sketch plan amendment, preliminary plan, and site plan applications. Right now, we're looking to file those formally around June 1st or so. And so we recognize that, I assume, and you'll tell us if I assume incorrectly, we recognize that we'll be coming back to the DAP likely again as part of the formal review of those applications once they're filed in a month or so. But because obviously by filing those three combined applications, we have to go to such a detailed level of design because we're including that site plan, we thought it was really important to come back to the DAP about a month before we formally file, just to sort of show you the iterative changes that we have made in response to your comments experience and just generally over the past 8 or so months, and get your feedback, get your thoughts, and then that will be very helpful to us and very informative to us as our team puts together the package that we intend to file with Park and Planning around June 1st. So just wanted to set the stage because there's a lot of history on this project, a lot of process. So Judd, do you want to just say a few brief words before we turn over to Andy?
Yeah, I don't need to rehash anything. I think that was a great summary. Thanks, Heather. I'm Judd Ullum with Folger Pratt, representing the applicant. Just wanted to say, back in the fall when we met with you before for the concept plan, we took your comments to heart, and I think we've been developing the plan. The massing hasn't changed greatly from what you saw before. I think there's been some refinement, and we've continued to develop the architecture and the facade treatment. And so we'll be presenting to you this morning. Andy from SK&I with the architect will run you through the package, and I'll hand it over to him. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Judd. I guess I'll share my screen, get started here. Right. You can all see my screen now. I hope it's legible for those of you in the conference room. Hi, I'm Andy Chakowski with SK&I Architects. As Judd said, we've been working on this for quite a while now, but working through all the details as we've been moving forward. I'll just kind of recap, as most of you know exactly where this is, but just to recap, we're on the south side of Bethesda, about 5 blocks south of the Metro Center, 2 blocks south of the new Purple Line station at the corner of Bethesda and Wisconsin, directly across from the Farm Women's Market. As Heather said, this originally came in as a sketch plan and has an approved sketch plan for the eastern piece. We've now added the Capital One site and consolidated the site into a combined lot. This property line, though, is important, as that does kind of extend up through the building and separates the heights. This is zoned to be 225 feet, the eastern portion, and it steps down to 200 feet on the western side of the building, and that broadcasts up through the massing. I do want to point out, we submitted this 2 weeks ago to you all. We just kind of realized that this sheet had a little error for those in the community. We had the older version of the Farm Women's Market. It's been updated since, and we've added that to the submission. So when it gets posted online, if any community members see that, this has the current site plan for that. But this is just a circulation plan illustrating, obviously the major roads and the new bike routes, the updated bike routes. And we know that there's a bike lane that's been built on Bethesda Avenue, crossing Artery Plaza, and extending across Wisconsin to the east. And fully understanding the importance of this site and its place in Bethesda on Wisconsin. Just kind of going back to the overall heights, we know, the massing of the Bethesda plan is a tapering from the edges to the center, and we're sort of one of the larger jumps in height from 145 to 225, going up to the 290 of the elm at the Purple Line station, and a couple of views of sort of that density terracing up, if you will. Just a couple really quick images of the neighborhood. There's a lot of existing condos, newer buildings built in the last decade or so. Artery Plaza is directly to the north of us with the brand new plaza, with the new Starbucks. We commonly call this the Starbucks site, but the new Starbucks is across the street. And obviously the Farm Women's Market and the plaza around that to the east of us. Just kind of recapping what we came in. When we came in last July to meet with you all, and we proposed sort of the design goals of this project. We said this new expanded site now completes the urban block with 3 active frontages on Bethesda, Wisconsin, and Miller. Bethesda and Wisconsin being the primary ones, and Miller being a little bit more of a service road, but it will be vastly improved over its current condition. we intend to achieve the design goals of the Bethesda plan and provide a dynamic, sustainable, and inclusive signature address at this location. Sculpt a signature residential tower while maintaining an approachable, scaled facade through unique geometry, varying tower heights, modulate and articulating facades, and limiting the facade's apparent face, particularly due to the height, the 225-foot height. And create an active and engaging architectural frontages and streetscapes to enhance the public realm at the ground floor. The recommendations, I guess these are the key ones that we took away from our meeting last summer. One of the main ones was the setbacks on Bethesda and Wisconsin could be enhanced. You all commented that the setbacks on Miller felt right, or they could be reduced to enhance the Bethesda and Wisconsin setbacks. You all recognize this corner tower on Wisconsin and Bethesda as a jam, an urban doorway that connects Bethesda Row and sort of the retail portions of Bethesda to Wisconsin and the Farm Women's Market. And that this corner tower is important and should be legible and articulate. And at the time, we did come with a drive-through. We were looking at the Capital One Bank and providing they currently have a drive-through, and we were studying a drive-through, and you all did not support that. And as you see, we've removed that, and it vastly improves sort of the ground floor circulation of the project. So the next several slides are just views of the design, kind of spinning around the block. This is a view looking south down Wisconsin. Essentially, Artery Plaza is in the foreground, but we've removed it, so you see the entire building. You can see the corner tower. You can see the sort of the cascading of the stepping of the building. What you see here is a 6-story base, the 19-story wings extending up, the 22-story sort of body, and then the corner tower with the penthouse room and the mechanical equipment screens, which give that corner element a little bit more vertical emphasis and distinction from the rest of the body of the building. What we have been working on is the tapering of the corners, the tapering of the steps. We originally had this splayed, and it's flattened out to create a consistent facade and a full setback. And we've really splayed the corner on Wisconsin quite a bit, and it really, you can see it because the top levels do go away as you proceed down Wisconsin. But essentially, we recognize the corners to be very important and active frontages on the sides. One of the issues, I think Paul mentioned this earlier, and we really took it to heart, was the kind of the view. We know this is ultimately the master plan of Bethesda has a wide pedestrian promenade running along this is the Farm Women's Market here on the right side of the image, and the potential development on the left side, and there'll be a wide pedestrian promenade. And we thought that this corner of the building, the secondary corner, was actually quite significant as well as the primary corner, and that this sort of subtle tapering going back could be a quite elegant recess of the building as the building splays as it goes up the facade and takes pressure off of the street and really does all the setback, all the intentions of the Bethesda plan for these setbacks. This exemplifies that and creates a dynamic and interesting secondary corner to the property, which is on axis with that new pedestrian promenade. This is a view from the south, on the south corner of Wisconsin. We're proposing to have the residential lobbies on this corner, and then retail extending north. Again, you see the base of the building, the 6-story base, very friendly with bays, balconies, etc. And that tapering going up towards the top. At the top level, coming off of the penthouse, we do have a pool deck and roof deck, and we're proposing the windscreen. One thing that we've all noticed as we've gotten to these heights in Bethesda, the wind, as we want to amenitize these roof terraces, the wind is quite a factor up there, and having obviously safety and wind guards to protect the people on those roof decks is quite important as well. But again, this tapering, and this is, you can kind of see the faded behind the massing of the building to the south of us is the facade on Miller. This is another view looking south. This is we kind of call this the True Foods building. Has the True Foods on the first floor. Again, you can see the tapering of the corner and then the emphasis of the corner tower. But I think this building with its placement on the block, the activation of the ground floor, and the tapering, its view, at least specifically from the south, is rather minimal, given the size and the scale of the buildings that are going up along Wisconsin Avenue. This is a view. We've removed the building on the Artery Plaza on the left. This is a view coming from Bethesda Row, kind of from JBG's headquarters. You can see the activation of the base. We do have our garage entrance here, so the corner will be just the in corner will have the garage entrance, and then the retail pieces stepping up the hill towards Wisconsin. And again, I think the significance is really that tapering down of the massing from the penthouse to the 225 to the 200. This is another view on the south side on Miller. Again, you will see this building from all sides. Even this may be the least significant, but it also is visible specifically from Lot 31, the bike trail that connects to the Capitol Crescent Trail. And this is where we're proposing our loading, and we're actually proposing a bike room back here as well on the back of the ground floor amenities, with that quick access to the Capitol Crescent Trail. So kind of moving forward, moving back to Wisconsin, these are close-up views of the corner. What we've done is we've extended this to be a two-story sort of volume on the corner of Wisconsin and Bethesda. You see the retail storefronts going down Wisconsin, going down Bethesda Avenue, the corner tower coming down. We've added, I'll get into this in a little bit, but we've treated this corner tower with articulated fins that extend all the way up to the top of the building, specifically at this corner. And we're proposing a really rich, dark, iron spot brick for the base of the building, and then punctuating that with bays, balconies in these metal frames that wrap and surround those window frames to really create layering effect to the facade. This is again the south corner. This is the lobby entrance, the main entrance to the residential building. We've preserved the Bethesda and Wisconsin corner for retail, and we've shifted the lobby to this corner, which it still gives it a Wisconsin Avenue address, and the Miller side of the facade on the ground floor will be the lobby amenity leasing areas, and then as you go further back to the loading dock, we'll have the bike room, and dress that up in a special way to make it feel sort of special and quasi-public. And then again, this is the view going down Bethesda Avenue. There's a little bit of topography, as you all know, as you come down Wisconsin towards Bethesda Row. And this would be the primary garage door entrance to the parking garage right here. And then a close-up view of the Miller frontage with the loading docks, and then a secondary sort of backdoor entrance for dogs and the bicycles. But again, that same treatment of bay windows, the iron spot brick, treating this as another frontage with the same compassion as the primary frontages. So we did kind of put a lot of diagrams into this just to make it kind of abundantly clear that we understand the Bethesda plan, we understand the design guidelines, we understand, and those all influence the building design in impactful ways. Having 3 frontages, each one of these streets has a different street type in the design guidelines. Wisconsin, the Urban Boulevard, Bethesda, Downtown Mixed Use, and Miller, the Neighborhood Local. And each one of those has different impacts on the facade and the setbacks and the streetscape. So we'll start with Wisconsin. We obviously understand the building frontage. And I guess going up and going through the terracing, and this is one of the specific comments, is that at the previous DAP last year, you all said that the setbacks on Wisconsin and Bethesda were timid and could be enhanced. And I think this is where we really took it. We knew Wisconsin was the primary facade, and we enhanced this one as best as we could. So we started with a 10-foot setback after the podium. We went up to a 13-foot setback at the top, and we really pushed this back to about 21 and a half feet at the corner here. So we've really splayed this as it goes up and tapered it back for all the reasons that we talked about. But I think it really makes a dynamic and interesting secondary corner for this property, as well as meeting all of and enhancing sort of the intentions of the setback guidelines. On Bethesda, we ultimately get to the 10-foot, but we start at the corner, we taper back to 10 feet. The notch is 10 feet up. The top is 10 feet. But due to how do I put it? When we can talk about this, I guess, in the discussion, but to really make the viable units, and the placement and the location of the core, it really put a lot of pressure between Miller and Bethesda Avenue. And in order to, so we left this at 8 feet on the body, but I think with all of the other setbacks and the top being 10 feet, we really met the intentions of the setbacks as best we could, while still providing a dynamic and interesting facade. And so this body is 8 feet back, and the top is 10 feet back. But again, I think we've really pushed this to get this as set back as we possibly could between these two. And as we go through we have a diagram at the end, and I think the intentions are pretty clear that we meet a lot, the intentions of the setback guidelines. Then again, this is the Miller facade on the Neighborhood Local Street. We do have this notch, and the comment was, maybe you could relieve some of the pressure off of here to enhance. But ultimately, when you're laying out the building, we really need as much sort of glazing and inside corners, and this really activates these units, and we do have some deep units on this side of the building, and we're providing as much glazing as we possibly can. But having these additional corners really met the program that Folger Pratt was looking for in a meaningful way. And I think the overall aesthetic actually is quite elegant here, having the two bars rise up with this notch in between. Nothing overhangs on the top, but and this is a sort of the narrowest street, but I think it can take this level of density and this level of setback. Combined, the setback is actually quite generous when you factor in all of the larger setbacks where we have no building, but we are providing sort of that base and about a 16-inch setback to really create a visual differential and set off the base, and then the tower setbacks a little bit from that, and then furthermore as it goes up, and including that 14-foot 8 notch in the middle. A few more diagrams, just again reading through the Bethesda guidelines. We understand the importance of the Canopy Corridors. Bethesda Avenue is considered a Canopy Corridor, and so we'll be rebuilding There are some lovely trees there, but the sidewalks are incredibly narrow, and it's a very precarious kind of place to walk right now. So this will be widened significantly, and we'll be replacing with 5 substantial street trees that that'll moving forward, and only interrupted with the small 20-foot drive aisle at the western end of the property. Kind of going back and just understanding the context, we kind of preemptively put this in here, just knowing that it could become an issue, but understanding the impact and significance of the farm women's market and all the park space that'll be planned and designed around it. We wanted to illustrate sort of the cardinal seasons, the equinoxes and the solstice from spring through fall. And just showing sort of the impact of the shadow studies and how through the majority of the day, this building will not impact the park at all during the prime use hours from 9 till 3 in the afternoon. And I think this was important just to, we know that community members might be concerned what the impact of this building, and it's minimal during these dates. Kind of furthermore, going into the environmental sides of the building, and maybe Valerie, I know Valerie and Brian worked tremendously hard on meeting this, but we're really pushing the rooftops of these buildings. The rooftops are becoming the most complicated parts of the buildings in some extent, but through designing the vegetated and roofs and then the bioretention. And this is a diagram that Parker Rodriguez, this is the plan that Parker Rodriguez came up with to provide the amount of bioretention, tree canopy, and vegetated roof to not only meet these environmental water retention standards, but also to meet the green coverage of the 35%. And if we get into this later, but I know Brian and Valerie can speak to this in tremendous detail. Just going back to the service and access and parking, we just wanted to point out this top corner is a diagram of what's currently there. There's a lot of head-in parking, a lot of curb cuts. There are some nice mature trees, but at the same time, there's a lot of unusable, kind of unfriendly pedestrian paths. We'll definitely be cleaning all that up on Bethesda with only the singular garage entrance, and then on Miller, where we're providing a lot of new tree canopy, which is currently nothing but head-in parking. And we'll be providing the loading on this back corner, along with the bike room and sort of service areas for the residents in that corner. So I think the curb cut condition has really been enhanced by this new development. Just kind of referencing back to the compatibility, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we know that there's this cascading up. The base is 6 stories. The body of the building is at 19 stories, and it runs all the way around the building from Bethesda to Wisconsin and then down Miller. And then the top of the building is at 22 stories. Only in that portion, again, that I referenced at the very beginning, due to the property lines that are currently there that impact those height designations between 225 and 220. So it's only this corner bit that's 22 stories. And then obviously the corner tower serves as the doorway, the landmark. And we are proposing to put all the mechanical equipment on top of the penthouse. And we'll have the club room in that corner on that top floor, which is allowed, and then access to the rooftop pool, et cetera. Just few more things going through the base placement. We followed all the design guidelines in order to locate and place the building, which provides all this wonderful streetscapes. The base street activation is incredibly important, specifically on Wisconsin, with the lobby, ground floor retail, carving the corner, the 2-story corner, and then turning the corner and running down Bethesda Avenue. And that is referenced here in this design guideline of being this is the recommended retail nodes. This is being one of them, and so we're complying with that and providing all ground floor retail specifically at those recommended corners and frontages. just diagramming the base, variation, and articulation. Going back to these diagrams, you have the corner tower, the 2-story void at the corner, then stepping up to the 6-story. It's not a tremendously long facade at this point, but running that cleaner along, but then adding those bays, the bay windows and the bay projection, the bay frames that hold the balconies within those. So those frames sort of bounce along, creating that shadow, the visual interest along Bethesda and Wisconsin, and as well as Miller. But we didn't diagram that for this purposes. And then having that consistent storefront line. Corner treatment, again, thinking of this as the urban hinge, the doorway to Bethesda, at least to Bethesda Row from the Farm and Women's Market. The significance of this corner, having it ground and extending all the way up, and then adding detail and articulation to it. We're proposing these vertical fins that rise up and attach to the facade to give it an extra layer of detail, an extra layer of shadow play. The corner treatment, again, that secondary corner that we discussed earlier, the tapering of that facade along from the promenade along the Farm Women's Market. And then the tower setback. We showed this diagram to really illustrate our how we're meeting these tower step backs. The minimums that are recommended are 10 feet on Bethesda, 10 feet on Wisconsin, and then 15 feet on Miller. But having the understanding that Miller was a little bit less significant in terms of meeting those, but it does sort of meet that intention through the cumulative setback, sort of the setback averaging, if you will, from one property line to the other, and providing that significant gap in the middle. It's sort of a heat map of the roof plan as it terraces up and cascades up. And it is quite sophisticated. There's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of terracing. There's a lot of structural things that we've had to work through to sort of meet this, but we think it works. It's very compelling. It meets the corner and then it steps back. And I think the enhancements that we've really produced are on Wisconsin. And we had this splayed, and we've cranked this back so it's a consistent, especially 10 feet at the upper levels. And then those setbacks all play into this sort of visual diagram of the cascading up the building to meet those setbacks. And the majority of the frontage is setback. And then again, sort of the menu of items that we talked about, using unique geometry, limiting the tower face, and then modulating and articulating the facades. I think we've worked diligently to meet all of these criteria. And then the tower top, allowing this tower top to extend up, providing those the club room and amenity spaces on the penthouse level, and then extending that up to hide and screen all the mechanical equipment that will be heating and cooling this building, and providing views for the residents on the terrace. And then understanding the bird safe design issues, through the articulation, through the projecting balconies, through the window depth variation and material depth variation, adding the fins, adding the shadows. The body of the building the wings are masonry, and having those windows set back within that. And we've been, I think the bird safe design has kind of been evolving about what and how these things happen. And we're hearing a little bit more feedback that a lot of this is happening in the bottom 35 feet of the building. And I think a lot of what we're proposing with these bays and bay frames and extensions at the bay windows will really play into that as well. And that is it. We have floor plans for reference, building facades, building sections beyond the appendix. So thanks for bearing with me. We wanted to make sure that we were thorough in sort of meeting all of the design criteria laid out in the design guidelines. So with that, I guess we can start discussion.
I want to jump in and apologize. This is Brian Kelly. I was having some connectivity issues here, and I came in late. So if we're taking a vote, I'm going to abstain from voting. But I just wanted to jump in and say that this looks like great improvement from, great progress from the first round. Two quick comments. One is that the tower element that we're looking at right now in the oblique. I think you have a unique opportunity at the corner with the way in which that column comes down. The column seems to belong to the order of the rest of the building. And it seems to me that the column, I think about in a lot of Art Deco buildings that sort of expresses a corner in a similar way, will make that column element can be a flourish, can be something that might be not necessarily part of the same palette of material, not necessarily the same sort of charcoal color, but perhaps something that kind of celebrates, and it's something also that might be a bit more hefty. Visually, it looks like it's pulling down a load from all the way from the top of the building all the way down to the base, and so it just sort of strikes me as that there's an opportunity to create that moment there as a kind of flourish. And kind of signature part for that part of the building. The other thing that struck me is the very top of the tower. I know that there was a public comment about making the tower higher, and I don't know if that's practical. But one of the things that struck me is that the amenity room and the windscreen that is above that kind of read as two separate things. And I'm just wondering, this is not truth in facade that I'm arguing for, but this is more artifice and facade. I wonder if the spandrel between the windscreen and the amenity room glazing could be downplayed so that you could get a bigger reading at the top of that building, something that sort of caps that building off a little bit more, so that it's a kind of giant order that kind of gives the tower piece a kind of flourish at the top as well. So, the middle is great. To me, how it grounds and then how it flourishes at the top. And I think that just simply suppressing the spandrel, painting the spandrel out, downplaying, because it's the same spandrel that we see elsewhere in the building, but making that spandrel a little bit more suppressed might allow that reading of that whole top bay, the windscreen and the amenity room to come together to create a kind of bigger scale at the top. And I'll be quiet after that. Sorry about that.
I have some questions. I didn't hear much about the materiality of above the 6 stories, where you got the dark brick on the base of the building, but the fins appear to be dark. I don't know. Is it all a metal and glass facade above that point, or are there other materials?
Yeah, so we're looking at let me find an image that I can zoom in on. Yeah, I think what we're looking at is we're kind of wanting to do a tone on tone in terms of the masonry. So the majority of the brick of the building will be masonry, and we're looking at doing a darker base brick, and then sort of a tone on tone to have a lighter but yet still dark brick at the tower, and having that change in tone, maybe even a change in texture. Or a change in the scale of the brick, transitioning up as it goes up. The corner tower is metal, glass and metal panel. So we're proposing, metal panel at the corner. And I think, Brian, those are really good comments, because we essentially got to a point we knew we needed to develop those further, but a lot of the mechanical equipment at the roof is still kind of coming into focus, and then the corner we got it to a point that we were comfortable with the overall design and the scale, but we knew that it was going to be an issue, and we wanted to get your all's feedback, to be perfectly honest. And we do agree with you. It's an opportunity to embellish that bottom corner. But to answer George's question, yeah, it's mostly masonry, with the corner pieces being metal, the penthouse being metal, and sort of the spandrel panels being metal.
Do you think the tower coloration will be lighter than the rest of the building?
Yeah, well, we anticipate the body of the building as it goes up to be like a tone lighter, 1 or 2 tones lighter. I kind of actually threw this together. We've been, obviously everyone's familiar with these dark, rich iron spot bricks. but the base could be like a really rich, maybe a smooth or a textured brick. And then there's a sort of some new shades as you go up. So that could have a lighter, more playful, maybe more serious brick at the base, and then more of a textured, rangy brick at the tower to create that light play, the color play. These things dapple, these bricks do dapple in the sunlight, which is actually and they change color quite a bit too in the sunlight, which is quite fantastic. But that was one of the thoughts here, is to have maybe a more polished, rich brick at the base, and then a more kind of playful, rangy brick at the tower to give it a little bit more range and dapple effect as it goes up.
Got it. Well,
George, this is Judd. I think we agree. I think having slightly lighter tonality of gray on the middle panel portion, so that there is kind of a trio of these different grays that kind of interplay together. We were conscious of the fact that while this is a tall building, the site's not that large in actuality, and so I think we like the idea of kind of playing with the tonality, but not deviating outside in a variety of colors. It just got too busy.
Well, I think I agree with what Brian was saying. I think the massing has come along very, very well. I'm trying to get my head around the masonry context all the way through. But one thing I did want to mention, I mentioned it on the Marriott headquarters too. I think the tower, while it's very elegant the way it's shown, it sort of poops out at the top, and probably could be, since it is a main vertical feature of the building, the way it ends could be really an opportunity for something exciting to set this particular tower apart from others. And since you have the fins going up anyway to the top of the tower, maybe there's an opportunity to extend them up or something. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it just seems to me, I think Brian said that it sort of just stops at this point. And in the Marriott, they added the slope, which is one of the things we talked about at that time. And I think that's one way to do it. I'm not sure that's appropriate here, but of everything on the building, I think that's the one thing that could perhaps have a little bit more interest.
Yeah, that's fair.
If I could jump in, I guess you guys can hear me. I agree generally with all the comments that I've heard. I think there's been some significant improvement in this design as we've seen it over the years. The things that I really like about the project, I really like the base of the building. I really like the intent of the fenestration pattern of the hinge. I very much agree with the top of the tower of the hinge. Instead of being truncated, it needs to be terminated. I don't know that it needs to be overplayed, but right now it just feels like it's been cut off. I think my bigger reservation, though, is really about the scale of the hinge itself, particularly on the north side. And it's really apparent when you look at the perspective heading down Wisconsin Avenue and you see the building. And it's interesting how wide it is. It's on the north side, let's call it 5 window units wide, versus on the east side, it's 4 units wide. And you almost wish there was some way, if you go back to the north facade again, you could overlap that skin to the right over the hinge itself and decrease the width of it to get a better, more elegant proportion. It seems to be really in your face when you're coming south, driving south on Wisconsin Avenue into Bethesda.
That's an interesting comment.
Thinking it through, I think, it's really a couple of things. I think it's based on, a little bit of the floor plan layout, what is based on the floor plan layout, as well as the extents of the tower top and the penthouse, the amenities, and sort of where the location of the elevators falls, so that you can come out of the elevators and meet that. So it's in some ways it's been plan driven to a certain extent.
To a certain degree, I'm not necessarily saying diminish the width of that tower element. more talking about trying to pull that east portion, right over, have it overlap to a certain degree and allow it to extend to the 5 bays, 5 window units wide as it emerges above that overlap.
And then again, what happens at the top of the tower ultimately might have an impact on that.
Right.
Mitigate some of the issues on the way.
But again, to reinforce some of the other comments, I think the materiality of the project is very elegant. I think there are, you know, again, this has come a long way. This proportion kind of jumped out at me when I first opened up the submission when we got it, what, a week or so ago.
Just to put it on the table, I personally don't have any concerns about the dimensions of the setbacks as you've showed them. I think that the purpose of that design guideline was to make sure that we didn't have boring and two uniform buildings. And I think the way you handle the massing in terms of the setbacks and the subtle ins and outs, plus the setbacks that you've shown, in my opinion, is in compliance with the intent of the design guidelines.
Yeah, to their credit, I think they really listened to us and the critique we gave them last summer. I mean, they have responded to many of the suggestions we made.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the elimination of the drive-through bank and that first the accumulation of the additional site has made this project what was very, very tortured in the beginning now appears very rational and an excellent end cap for this particular location.
This is Chao. I agree with all the panelists' comments. I think the massing has a lot of improvement. I do have a question regarding the ground floor. Could design team explain what is happening on the ground floor behind the property line, the programming, and what's the outdoor spaces for?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, this is the ground floor. You know, like I said, on the Miller corner, we're proposing the lobby amenity address. You come in at the corner, lobby leasing, etc., elevator access. We have fire control panel, fire control room, then retail. You know, running along the primary corner of and turning the corner down Bethesda. We do have a lot of our transformers located on Wisconsin. It is a wide enough walkway to create the tree pits, the pedestrian promenade, and then you can see all these additional lines here are the transformer locations. And this is actually, we've been studying this quite a bit. There's a lot of this is happening from Marriott to the new the Trader Joe's, et cetera. I think it's actually working out quite well, and the Pepco wants to put all these things on Wisconsin, and the setback's gracious enough to accommodate all of these things, and then turning the corner and really providing enhanced streetscape. We don't know exactly who's going to be leasing here, but we're trying to be as flexible as we possibly can. And there is grade change, so we anticipate there being slab folds on Bethesda Avenue. We don't know exactly where they're going to be yet, but we're showing multiple entry locations for a handful of. There could be 2, 3 different retailers here potentially. With the primary retail at this corner, with this small, public open space, which was another community comment that we had heard, that this corner was significant enough, and they wanted, enough wide. I think what's going to be interesting for the community is that it's such a narrow sidewalk currently between the building and Bethesda Avenue, that when this comes in, this is about 15 feet plus the corner recess that we, obviously, Brian, we can embellish. We can embellish the column. We've even been thinking about the ceiling. What there could be maybe a special ceiling under here to really enhance that moment. But then making this a very special, a small but special place, and it's going to be a significant public improvement from what's currently there.
So for the transformers, are they above grade, right?
No, they'll all be in vaults below grade. These are just the covers, and actually they do a wonderful job here with brick panels. There's a little bit of grading, but then there's a lot of brick detailing that goes around those things. So they kind of go away, but there are a reality that we have to accommodate for.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and then like I said, on the Miller side, we have the loading docks, we have a couple, building entrances, the water pump room, but we're proposing putting the bike room over here to have a sort of that bike room storefront opportunity. This could be to really play up the access to the Capitol Crescent Trail for the residents. They can zip out here, and then we have the dog, the dog spa, so if they go out, they can bring their dirty dogs here and wash them up before they go up to their apartments. So it's really.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
No, these things have just really, they've turned into very usable, user-friendly kind of back doors that get used quite often. So, especially on the weekends.
I was just going to say there was a question in the chat from Chuck Hines, and he was asking what our public open space requirement is here and how we're planning on meeting it. Hopefully, I see I'm frozen on camera. Hopefully you can hear me. So we do have a 5% public open space requirement based on the size of the site and the 3 right-of-way frontages that we face. And so I guess either Andy or Matt or maybe Trini or Brian, whoever wants to address that question. And we are meeting it, I should say.
Yeah.
Just in short, the frontages for the open space where we are able to do it on site is along Wisconsin and Bethesda, and we do exceed the 5% requirement. I think we're at 10% or just about there with what's proposed. It's primarily the pedestrian way, and then some of the amenities that we're proposing along the main retail entrance corner there is what will count towards our open space.
There's a Artery Plaza across from the street on the north. Is that a timeline for that plaza? Do we know?
It's done now.
Yeah, it's
it's done. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Great.
And these will open up to it, so it's kind of nice.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What's the plaza that you're referring to?
It's the one on
Artery Plaza.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Directly north across Bethesda Avenue.
Yeah. Well, I'll chime in. I very much like this project. I think you guys may have come a long way from the last time you kind of showed us your conceptual design here. Certainly understand the comments of my colleagues, and there's always room for improvement, but I really like this building. I'm not sure if you guys are asking for a vote today, if you're planning on coming back to us, but I mean, I'm in a place where I'm ready to vote for approval right now. I think this is a really nice looking building. So the system of step backs, I think really works well on this project.
What are we doing today, staff?
So I know Heather mentioned that they were going to be coming back when they submit their applications in the next coming months. But if the panel
we don't have to. I was just offering.
Right, yeah, if the panel's ready to vote today, based on the previous times you've been here and the fact that you are going to be submitting soon for sketch, preliminary, and site plan, I think if the panel's ready to vote today, we're happy to take the vote
And not come back.
and not come back.
And I would just say too, we're happy to have that. And I realize that the sketch plan amendment, preliminary plan, and site plan aren't formally pending before you now. But we're certainly happy to give the DAP, a courtesy submission copy of that when we file, or, even just do a quick courtesy stop by or whatever. We appreciate your willingness to vote today and your recognition of how hard the team has been working for a long time now.
And I think the applicant's requesting 10 points for design excellence. Yeah.
That's correct.
So like I said, I'm okay with voting. I'll leave that up, the decision to planning staff and my colleagues. But like I said, I'm comfortable today with where it's at, especially for 10 points.
I guess my only concern is we did suggestions today. Maybe they're going to be ignored. I don't know, but
yeah, that's my concern. Well, I have to chime in a little bit. My biggest concern is that I don't fully understand the detail of the elevations yet. I think the massing and all of the work that has been done regarding our past comments has been wonderful, and I think I see a lot of modifications. But I see this. I see these drawings, and I see this building more as kind of almost a model rather than a building yet. And I think the detail of the essentially of the top of the tower, I think is a big deal. I also think that I would love to see a little bit more of a presentation of exactly kind of how you're going to detail these walls. And I know that you were a little bit into it on a couple of the different brick types, but I would love to see a little bit more of that. And I think if I think 10 points is basically nothing. That's the minimum. And I think that's probably a no-brainer that you're going to get that. But I would love to see this building be better than that. And I think that if we could get one more presentation, almost addressing a couple of the comments we made, and also much more focused on the detail of kind of the skin of this building, I would appreciate that before we kind of have a final vote. And I would hope that maybe you with that detail, you could ask for some more points, and we could vote on that next time.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Matter of fact, if you respond to the comments, we may even consider increasing the points, right? Because I think you're on track. I mean, 10 points is a low bar, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's really on track, but I think it's the detail right now that I'm not seeing, and I would love to see that presentation.
I very much agree. That was the crux of my questions earlier on. It's really hard to understand what's happening, and maybe it's wonderful, but if we're going to be a design review, it might be nice to understand it a little better, as has been suggested.
Yeah, we're certainly amenable to that. Absolutely.
Good.
I've been taking a ton of notes. If the other panel members have no further comments, we can go ahead and wrap this up. And then we have another item, which is under a separate meeting request we can hop onto. Heather, do you have that link?
Oh, is it a separate link? I don't have it. No. Could you forward it to me?
Yeah, I can forward it to you right now.
Okay. Team, ignore. Has nothing to do with this project.
Okay. See you guys over there.